He once paid for my future just to erase me from his past. Now he's marrying someone else and invited me to stand beside her in white. He thinks I came alone. But what he doesn't know, I brought our daughter back with me. And this time I'm going to watch him regret. The call came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, the kind that felt weightless. Laundry drying on the balcony, the kettle whistling lazily, and Elia's giggles echoing down the hallway as she chased her stuffed bunny in socks. My phone rang. The number wasn't saved. But the moment I saw those digits, I knew. I hadn't seen or heard from Ryan Mitchell in nearly a decade. Not since he funded my education and sent me across the world, like a parting gift packaged with a quiet dismissal. But memories don't sleep even if people do. I answered anyway. "Mira," he said. The voice was exactly as I remembered, smooth, steady, as if we hadn't lived lifetimes apart. "It's been a while." I said nothing. I wasn't sure my voice would cooperate. He went on casually, "Vanessa and I are getting married next month." I blinked. Then blinked again. "She needs a bridesmaid," he continued. "Someone familiar. She thought of you." There was the punchline. "You two used to be close," he added, like that was supposed to soften the blow. I didn't laugh. Didn't curse him either. I just stared at the chipped edge of the kitchen tile and said calmly, "All right." There was a pause on his end, maybe waiting for a different reaction. When none came, he said, "I'll send you the details. Hope you'll come." I hung up. Elia padded into the kitchen a moment later, her cheeks flushed from running. "Who was that?" she asked, plopping onto a stool and swinging her legs. "An old friend," I said, pouring her a glass of juice. "He's getting married. Invited us to the wedding." Her eyes sparkled. "A wedding? Like with music and cake and dresses?" I smiled, brushing her hair back from her face. "Yes. Like that." She clapped. "Can I come too?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Will there be dancing?" "Maybe." "And will I get to wear the pink dress? The one with the tiny pearls?" "Yes, sweetheart. That one." She beamed, already imagining herself spinning across a dance floor. She didn't know this wasn't just any wedding. She didn't know she was about to return to the country of her birth, the one I had quietly left with her inside me, the one I'd never planned to revisit. She didn't know the man getting married was the man who gave her his eyes, his stubborn chin, and nothing else. I booked our tickets that evening using my own money. I didn't want to owe Ryan a single favor, not even a plane seat. I told Elia we were going to visit some of Mommy's old friends, to see where I grew up. She was too excited to ask many questions. Her world was still simple, sun hats and bento lunches and fairy tales before bed. And I wanted to keep it that way for as long as I could. Ryan didn't know about her. And I didn't intend to change that. Not now. Not for him. He lost the right to be part of her world the day he chose someone else. We arrived at the international airport 3 days before the wedding. The humidity clung to my skin like memory. Elia held my hand tightly, bouncing on her toes, eyes wide with curiosity at everything. The giant escalators, the glowing signs, the buzz of voices in a language she only partially understood. I had arranged for Leona, my childhood friend, now more like a sister, to meet us at the side terminal and take Elia home with her directly. Ryan had no idea I had a child. And I wasn't about to let him find out while holding hands with his new bride. Just before we reached the main exit, I crouched down beside Elia. "You remember what we talked about?" I whispered. She nodded, her voice small. "Stay with Auntie Leona. Don't come out until you say, 'Good girl.'" She hugged me tight, then followed Leona through the side doors without looking back. Only when they were gone did I pull in a breath, smooth my hair, and step forward into the arrival hall. They were waiting just beyond the glass, Ryan, Vanessa, and a young girl beside them. The picture-perfect welcome committee. Ryan stood straight, wearing his tailored blazer and confident smirk. Vanessa, draped in ivory silk, offered a graceful smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. And between them, the child, Arya, I presumed, stared blankly at me with crossed arms and narrowed eyes. "Mira," Vanessa said warmly as I approached. "You made it." "Thank you for the invitation," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. She stepped forward and pulled me into a light embrace, more for show than sincerity. "It means a lot. Really. I know things have changed, but having you here feels right." Right? She was marrying the man who once promised me forever, and she wanted it to feel right. I gave a polite smile. Then Arya spoke. She's not very pretty. The words were clear, loud, and deliberately cutting. Vanessa flinched. Arya. Arya pouted. She looks boring. Why is she even coming to the wedding? I stiffened. Ryan looked down at her sharply. Arya, that's enough. But then he turned to me and his eyes narrowed. Don't take it personally, he said flatly. She's a kid. Don't drag her into adult stuff. My jaw tightened. I haven't said a word. Just saying, he replied. It's not the time to start anything. Start anything? Vanessa stepped in quickly, all honeyed diplomacy. Let's not make a scene, Long flight. I'm sure Myra's tired. I smiled at her. I'm not the one making a scene. Her smile twitched. We walked toward the car in silence, the tension between us rippling like heat off pavement. They offered to drop me off at the hotel, the one they'd booked for the bridal party. I declined. I've arranged my own accommodation, I said. Vanessa blinked. Oh. We thought. It's easier this way, I interrupted. Ryan didn't protest. He just checked his phone. We said our goodbyes at the curb. Vanessa hugged me again, perfunctory. Ryan looked me over once, something unreadable in his eyes. See you at the rehearsal dinner. I nodded, then turned and walked away. By the time I forced myself up and opened the door, Ryan Mitchell was kneeling beside Elia, one hand on her back, his face drawn in concern. Elia saw me first and shot up. Mom. I forced a weak smile and opened my arms. She ran into them. Ryan stood. I looked him in the eyes, voice steady despite the heat still burning in my veins. Let me introduce you. I tightened my hold on Elia. This is my daughter. Her name is Elia. Ryan's expression faltered. He stared at her like she was a puzzle piece he didn't remember misplacing. Then his eyes returned to mine, sharper now. Your biological daughter? I nodded once. Color drained from his face. His voice dropped. Mira, you had a child? I thought that was obvious. He took a step forward. And you didn't think to tell me? I didn't think it was any of your concern. He stared at Elia again, who was now looking between us, wide-eyed. Elia, he said softly, kneeling again, how old are you? She glanced at me, uncertain. I gave her a little nod. She held up a hand with fingers splayed. I'm 5. Ryan inhaled sharply. Then his eyes flicked back to me. Who is her father? I gently stood, adjusting Elia's backpack on my shoulder. That's not something you need to know. His jaw clenched. So you just had a child and kept it from me? I looked him square in the eye. You said years ago that I could do anything I wanted, as long as I didn't interfere with your life with Vanessa. I'm keeping that promise. He laughed bitterly. So this is what? A statement? You're parading a child around hoping I'll feel guilty? That I'll regret choosing her over you? I don't need your guilt, I said. And I'm not trying to win you back. Ryan scoffed. Don't act like you're above it, Mira. You showed up with a child and just happened to run into me? You've been planning this. I didn't even want to see you, I said, my voice lower now. You invited me. Or have you forgotten? He took a breath, but before he could speak again, a waiter came up beside him. Mr. Mitchell, the man said respectfully, Miss Clark is asking for you. She says you've been gone too long. Ryan didn't turn. He just muttered, she can wait. I glanced down at Elia. Her little hand curled tightly around mine. We started walking. Ryan called after me. Is that really all this is to you? Just another secret to throw in my face. I turned briefly, enough for him to see the exhaustion in my eyes. I suggest you stop living in fantasies, I said. This child has nothing to do with you. And once the wedding is over, we'll be gone. You won't hear from me again. I didn't wait for his reply. Back at the hotel, Elia was unusually quiet. She sat on the edge of the bed, playing with the zipper of her jacket. I brushed her hair gently, trying to soothe the nervous flutter I could see in her small shoulders. Then she spoke so softly I almost missed it. Mom. Yes, sweetheart. That uncle from earlier. Who was he? I paused. She turned her big brown eyes toward me. Is he your brother? I've never seen him before. He's not very close to us, I said. You've never met him because I haven't seen him in a long time. But he looked like he knew you. I smiled faintly and kissed her forehead. Not everyone who knows you deserves a place in your life, Alia. Some people are just chapters we don't read again. She didn't fully understand, but she gave a little nod. Then slowly she leaned against me and whispered, "Oh, Mom. I trust you." I hugged her tightly, heart aching, because I knew what came next would only get harder. The flu hit like a wave no one saw coming. It started with Leona, sneezing, then chills, then a fever that left her curled up in bed, shivering under 3 blankets. I kept Elia away from her as much as I could, but by the end of the week, my daughter's cheeks were flushed and her forehead burned to the touch. Her tiny body trembled with every breath. "Mom, my head hurts," she whispered, eyes glossy. I held her tightly. "I know, baby. I've got you." By then my own throat was sore and my stomach refused food. I'd barely slept for 2 nights, watching her temperature rise and fall, administering medicine every 4 hours like clockwork. But it wasn't helping. Every time her fever broke, it came back even stronger. So I bundled us up and took her to the hospital. I didn't expect to see them there. The waiting area was overcrowded. Crying children, coughing elders, exhausted parents, all crammed into the narrow corridors, trying to get a doctor's attention. Elia leaned against me, her breathing shallow, head resting on my shoulder. My own legs felt weak beneath me, but I kept holding her. We were about to be called when a familiar voice floated toward us from the other end of the hallway. "Andy." "No. Not Andy. Mira." I turned slowly. Ryan stood just feet away, holding Arya in his arms. Vanessa was next to him, dressed in a pale pink blazer that looked painfully out of place in this sterile environment. Arya looked weak, her face pale, eyes half closed. Vanessa was the first to speak. "Mira, is your child all right?" I nodded once. "She's running a high fever." Vanessa frowned with polite concern. "This flu season has been horrible. Arya started coughing a few days ago and wouldn't stop. Thank goodness Ryan has been helping nonstop. He hasn't left her side." Her eyes flicked down to Elia, then up to me. "You look tired," she said, as if it were an insult disguised as sympathy. "I'm fine," I replied, even though I wasn't. Ryan took a step closer. "Is Elia eating?" "Drinking fluids." The way he said her name made something tighten in my chest. "She's doing the best she can," I said. Vanessa's smile thinned. "We mothers always manage, don't we? Even when we're sick ourselves. We push through. Of course, it's easier when you have support." She added with a note of warning, "Arya doesn't even wear a mask when we come here. Ryan's very particular about protecting her." I heard the subtext loud and clear. "You're careless. You let your daughter get sick. You can't manage without help." I didn't rise to it. Instead, I gently shifted Elia's weight and said, "I should go. Our turn's coming up." Ryan's brow furrowed. "Wait, Mira, are you okay? You're pale." "I'm fine," I repeated. "This isn't about me." "But," I said, "I'm fine." Vanessa stepped in, her tone light but her gaze cold. "Ryan, we should go. We don't want Arya catching anything else. This hospital is full of all kinds of germs." Ryan hesitated but nodded. As I turned to walk away, I heard him call out again. "Mira, wait." I paused. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're clearly unwell. It's not easy doing all this alone. Let me help." I looked at him. Really looked. His sleeves were rolled up, his eyes tired, jaw clenched from too many sleepless nights. He was trying to be kind now, but I hadn't forgotten what his kindness had cost me before. "There's no need to be polite," I said, voice calm. "If I need help, I'll ask the doctor. Or a nurse. But thank you." Ryan stared at me, visibly conflicted. But before he could reply, Arya started crying loudly in Vanessa's arms. Vanessa bent down, trying to soothe her. "Sophia, be good. Mommy knows you're not feeling well. But Daddy has to help another child for a little while. He'll be back soon, okay?" Arya's wails only grew louder. Ryan looked at Elia again, then back at Arya. He sighed. "You go ahead. I'll stay with Arya." I gave a polite nod and walked away. The doctor prescribed an 4 drip for Elia and told me to get one too. We were led into a small room with recliners and thin curtains separating each patient. Elia was braver than I expected. She barely flinched when the nurse inserted the needle. I sat beside her, my head pounding. My vision blurred and I could feel the room tilting slightly. Still, I pressed my hand to my forehead and smiled at her. "You're doing great," I whispered. Elia pulled out a small thermos from her backpack and opened the lid. The warmth hit my face and I realized she was offering it to me. "Here," she said. "Mom, use this on your head. It's warm." I took it, pressed it to my forehead and closed my eyes. "I know you don't feel well either," she whispered. "Once I'm done, let's get you checked too, okay?" I looked at her, heart swelling. "You're such a good girl, Elia." She smiled faintly and leaned back into the recliner. But I didn't stay awake long enough to hear what she said next. The world dimmed. The sound of her voice became water in my ears. And then, nothing. When I came to, the lights were brighter. I blinked. My head was resting on something warm, and Elia's small hand was wrapped tightly in mine. "Mommy," she whispered. "You're awake." I sat up quickly, wincing. "Elia, how long was I out?" "Just a little while. You fainted." I told a nurse. Then I saw that uncle again. I looked up. Ryan stood in the doorway holding a thermos of warm water. He didn't speak immediately. Just walked over and handed it to me. "I brought this," he said. "You were burning up." I took it silently, unsure what to say. He stepped outside and returned a moment later with a nurse who began checking my vitals. Then Ryan knelt down beside Elia. "Elia," he said softly, "would you mind going to play outside with the nurse for a little while? Your mom and I need to talk." She looked at me for permission. I gave her a nod. She squeezed my hand and left the room. The silence that followed was heavy. Ryan stood and looked down at me. "Mira," he said, voice low, "why did you lie to me?" I didn't reply. "I saw Elia's records," he continued. "She's 6. That means she was born before you left the country." I opened my mouth, then closed it again. "Don't," he said. "Don't tell me it's a clerical error. Don't pretend she's 5. My chest rose and fell. "She's not your daughter," I said quietly. He laughed, but it wasn't amused. It was cracked and bitter. "You still want to keep lying? After all this?" "I'm not lying," I replied, though the words didn't come out as strongly as I wanted. "Then who's her father?" he snapped. "Where is he?" "You don't need to know that." "Mira," he said, stepping closer, his voice sharp, "I just asked Elia who her father was. She said she doesn't have one. Only a mother." "She meant he's not here," I said. "That's all." He stared at me. I knew that look. He already knew the truth. He just wanted to hear it from me. Because unless I admitted it, unless I said the words out loud, he had no legal claim to her. No emotional ground to stand on. And I wasn't ready to hand him either. Not yet. Not ever. The day I found out I was pregnant, I sat alone in the bathroom, gripping the test so tightly the plastic creaked in my hand. 2 lines. Faint. But unmistakable. My stomach turned, not from nausea but fear. I didn't cry, not at first. I just stared at the results, the silence around me pressing in like water filling a sinking ship. The man I loved, had loved for most of my life, was across the city taking care of another woman's unborn child. A woman who had already replaced me in every way that mattered. So I needed to tell him. I needed to look him in the eye and say the words. Maybe, foolishly, I believed that if he knew it would change something. So I waited outside his office for hours. I watched staff come and go, saw the lights flicker on in the conference room and felt hope flicker with them. Then his assistant came out. She looked nervous, avoiding my gaze as she handed me a message on a folded note. "Vanessa is in the office. Please don't come up. If she gets upset, Ryan said he'll never forgive you." That was it. No conversation. No meeting. No Ryan. I sat down on the cold bench in front of the building and opened my bag. Inside was a sealed envelope with the results from my first checkup. Heart rate, blood work, confirmation of life. I'd brought it to show him. Instead, my hands were shaking so badly I dropped it. It landed face down on the pavement and I didn't pick it up. I went home and curled into myself for the rest of the night, crying until my ribs ached. I kept whispering one word over and over. Why? There was no answer then. And now, sitting across from him in a hospital lounge 6 years later, I still wasn't sure there ever would be. "I wanted to tell you," I said, staring at my hands. "Back then. I came to your office." Ryan didn't speak. He looked like he was still struggling to breathe properly after the shock. "Your assistant wouldn't let me in. He said Vanessa was there. That if I upset her, you'd never forgive me." His eyes darted away. I knew what that meant, I said. You were gone, Ryan. You were already hers. I leaned back in the chair, pressing the warm cup of water he'd brought against my forehead. And I realized I couldn't raise a child near you. Not when you would choose someone else's over your own. Ryan looked like he'd been slapped. Mira, don't, I cut in quietly. Just, let me finish. He stayed silent. I left. I didn't tell anyone. Not your family. Not mine. I went abroad with a belly full of fear and hope and nothing else. I slept on couches, took tutoring jobs, got scholarships. And when Elia was born, my voice cracked. She looked like you. Everything about her. Her eyes, her stubbornness, her laugh. I couldn't escape you even when I tried. Ryan closed his eyes. But I promised myself she would never feel the pain I did. He wouldn't know what it felt like to be second. Or to be forgotten. I gave her my name. And I never looked back. There was a long pause. Then Ryan spoke. Do you think I didn't miss you? He asked softly. Do you think I didn't think about you every single day? I didn't answer. I kept posting photos of Arya, he said. I knew you'd see them. I hoped you would. I used to sneak in selfies thinking maybe you'd recognize the watch you gave me, the coat you bought for me in college. Maybe you'd feel something. Anything. I stared at him. He looked ashamed. I know it was pathetic. Yes, I said. It was. He exhaled shakily. My marriage to Vanessa wasn't what you think. I arched a brow. Is this the part where you tell me you were forced? He nodded. Her family, the Carters, had something on us. Something that could have ruined the Mitchell name. They were threatening to release a financial report. My father panicked. Vanessa said she'd keep them quiet if we got married. So I did. I said nothing. I sent you abroad not just because I was angry, but because I was afraid, he added. You were the only thing they could use against me. My only weakness. So you sent me away, I said, and chose her. I planned to bring you back, he said quickly. Once the danger passed. Once things settled. But then, you disappeared. Of course I did, I whispered. What did you expect? That I'd sit around waiting for my turn? Ryan looked at me, eyes glistening. I was wrong. I see that now. I leaned forward slightly. Do you remember what you said to me? Back then. He looked unsure. You said if my presence disturbed Vanessa's child even a little, you would never forgive me. Even if it cost you your life. He flinched. You made me feel like poison. Like I was a threat to be managed. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I held them back. I was scared. Powerless. Alone. You crushed me. I know, he said. His voice broke. Gudmira. I know. He buried his face in his hands. I deserve all of it. I wasn't thinking. I was trying to protect everyone and ended up destroying the only person who ever really mattered to me. I said nothing. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said. I know I don't deserve it. But Elia, she deserves to know her father. She has a mother, I said quietly. And that's enough. He looked up, desperation in his voice. Please, let me make it right. For her. I stood slowly. You can't make up for 6 years with 6 sentences. I want to be part of her life. She doesn't need you. She wants to know. You abandoned her before you even knew her, I snapped. You can't just walk back in because you suddenly feel guilty. I'm not walking back in. I'm begging, Mira. I looked at him. Truly looked. The man who once held my hand through every exam. The boy who carried my books and whispered dreams into my ear at night. The man who, when it truly mattered, turned away. And now here he was. Broken. Crying. And too late. I don't hate you, I said softly. His eyes lifted, hopeful. But that doesn't mean I trust you. Or want you near her. His face crumpled. Elia is happy, I added. She's kind, brave, strong. And I did that. Not you. I know, he whispered. So do her a favor, I said, picking up my coat. Don't try to turn her into your redemption arc. I turned to leave. Mira, please. I paused at the doorway. You lost your place in our story a long time ago, I said without turning back. Don't try to rewrite it now. I found out the wedding was cancelled the same way everyone else did, through a barrage of notifications lighting up my phone screen. Breaking. Ryan Mitchell calls off engagement to Vanessa Clark just days before the ceremony. Sources claim internal conflict between families, Clark and Mitchell alliance dissolving. Scandal brews. Rumors swirl about a child caught in the middle. I stared at the headlines feeling nothing. No satisfaction. No thrill. Just quiet. Leona read the articles out loud while I packed Elia's things. He really did it, she muttered, scrolling through comment sections. He actually called it off. Publicly. I told you, I said, folding a sweater. He was never going to go through with it. But he didn't just cancel, she said, eyes widening. Mira, he admitted Aria's not his daughter. It's in the statement. I looked up. What? She turned her phone around. To clarify all speculation, Aria Clark is not my biological daughter. I raised her out of personal responsibility, but I am not her father. I regret allowing the public to believe otherwise. There was. In black and white. Ryan Mitchell had detonated the one truth Vanessa spent years hiding, and built her entire future on. I sat down slowly, processing the weight of it. He just made an enemy, I murmured. Leona glanced at me. You think she'll retaliate? I know she will. It didn't take long. That night I received a message. No emojis. No punctuation. Just one long breathless line. If you don't give Ryan back to me, I'll take what you love. I read it twice, then locked my phone. The silence in the hotel room suddenly felt dangerous. The shadows in the corners a little too long. I walked to Elia's bed, watching her sleep, chest rising and falling, her hand clutching the edge of her blanket. She looked so peaceful. Too peaceful for the storm that was coming. The next morning, the tabloids were merciless. Analysts picked apart every public appearance Vanessa had made, speculated about Aria's real father, even reposted old photos of Ryan looking less than enthusiastic beside her. Meanwhile, social media exploded with clips of the cancelled wedding venue, with workers tearing down banners and boxes of flowers left to wilt. I stayed off the internet. But Leona kept tabs. She's spiraling, she told me. Vanessa's been commenting anonymously on posts, using burner accounts. She's even accusing Ryan of emotional abuse. She's cornered, I said. And she doesn't know how to lose quietly. I tried not to show it, but every time Elia stepped out of my sight, I panicked. I called Leona every half hour. I double-checked the locks. I memorized exit routes at the clinic, the hotel, the market. I knew what desperation could drive someone to do. Especially someone who'd built her identity on a lie, and just watched it unravel in front of the entire country. A few days later, Ryan called. I didn't pick up. He tried again. Then texted. She's not well. She's saying things. Don't go anywhere alone. That much I'd already assumed. I'm taking steps to protect you and Elia, he wrote. Don't protect us now, I replied. You had your chance. So I couldn't sleep. Vanessa's message replayed in my mind like a record with no end. If you don't give Ryan back to me, I'll take what you love. It wasn't about Ryan anymore. Not really. It was about being humiliated. Losing her status. Watching everything she clawed for get handed back to someone she considered beneath her. That's what made her dangerous. Not heartbreak. Revenge. Elia had no idea what was unfolding around her. And I intended to keep it that way. We went out only in the early hours when the streets were quiet. I stayed off social media. I kept our movements limited to places with people I trusted. One afternoon I took her to the park behind the hotel. Somewhere quiet, familiar, where she could play without worry. She ran through the leaves, her laughter floating through the trees, completely unaware of the headlines, the secrets, the threats. I was sitting on a bench, sipping lukewarm tea when my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a message. It was a photo. My breath caught. It was Elia. Standing by the monkey bars. Taken from behind. From a distance. Seconds ago. My tea slipped from my hand, crashing to the ground. Elia. I shouted, bolting upright. She turned surprised. Mom. I ran to her, grabbed her arm and scanned the surrounding area. But whoever took the photo, they were gone. Back at the hotel I called the police. Showed them the message, the photo, the threats. They took it seriously. Especially when I told them about Vanessa's history, her mental state, and what Ryan had recently made public. They promised extra surveillance, coordinated with the hotel, placed a quiet alert on our names at the airport. Ryan showed up later that night. His face looked drawn, more exhausted than I'd ever seen him. "I warned you," he said, pacing the room. "I told you she'd lose it." "You made her," I replied. "You fed her lies for years." "I had no choice." "There's always a choice." He stopped pacing and looked at Elia, who sat quietly in the corner, drawing in her notebook. "She doesn't know yet, does she?" he asked softly. "No," I said. "And she won't, unless you do something stupid." He nodded, rubbing his hands over his face. "I've hired security. I've cut ties with the Clark family completely. I don't care about the fallout anymore. It's a little late for that." He stepped closer. "Mira, you don't have to do this alone." "I'm not alone," I said. "You just weren't paying attention." We stood in silence. Then Ryan pulled out his phone and showed me a video. Vanessa, crying in her car, screaming into the camera about betrayal, about taking back what's mine. "She's not stable," he said. "And she's not working alone. Her family." "I don't care who she's working with," I interrupted. "If anything happens to Elia, I will destroy all of you." He met my eyes. "I believe you," he said. We didn't sleep that night. Elia slept between us on the bed, oblivious, curled up like a kitten, and I watched the windows like a hawk, my hand resting over hers. At some point I turned to Ryan and said, "Do you regret it?" He looked at me. Every second. I didn't respond. Because it didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. And the worst was yet to come. The day started like any other. Elia begged to go out. Leona offered to take her to the amusement park for a few hours while I stayed back to catch up on work and finally rest. I hesitated, every part of me clenched with anxiety, but Leona assured me it would be a quick, safe outing. "She'll be fine," she said. "I'll keep my eyes on her the whole time." I forced myself to nod. Elia squealed with excitement, already picking out which dress she wanted to wear. They left around 10 a.m. At 11:42 my phone rang. She never called unless it was urgent. My chest tightened before I even answered. "Mira," her voice was frantic. "She's gone." I froze. "What do you mean she's gone?" I just turned around for a second to buy water. 1 second. She was standing right next to me, then she wasn't. "I've looked everywhere. She's not here." I called her name. I asked the staff. "Mira." I didn't let her finish. My heart dropped into my stomach as I stood up, grabbing my bag. "I'm calling the police." "I already did," she whispered. "They're on their way." I hung up and dialed emergency. While I spoke to the dispatcher, my hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold the phone steady. My mind raced. Elia didn't wander. She knew better. She never left my side unless she had permission. Then I remembered. Vanessa's message. "If you don't give Ryan back to me, I'll take what you love." I pulled it up and stared at it again, bile rising in my throat. This wasn't just a tantrum. She meant every word. I showed the message to the police the moment they arrived. Their expressions shifted instantly. "She's a known associate of the Clark family?" the officer asked. "More than that," I replied. "She was engaged to Elia's father. The wedding was called off just days ago." I didn't have to say the rest. It was all over the news. As the officer took down my statement, another figure appeared beside me. Ryan. He looked like he'd run the entire way. "Where is she?" he demanded, eyes wide. "Gone," I said, barely able to say the word. His face crumpled. "She took her. Vanessa took Elia." "How do you know?" I asked. "Because I know her," he said bitterly. "This is exactly what she'd do." He turned to the officers. "I've already sent my team out to track her. She has nowhere to hide. We'll find them." "She had help," I whispered. "Someone must have distracted Leona." Ryan looked at me, voice firm. "We'll bring her back. I promise." Then my phone buzzed again. A new message. No subject. No punctuation. "Andy, why did you return? Because of you, Aria lost her father. You ruined everything. Now your daughter is with me. If you want her back, you'll have to exchange your life for hers." I read it once, then handed the phone to the police. The lead officer's jaw tensed. "We'll trace the signal. Stay close." Ryan looked like he might throw up. "I should have handled this sooner," he muttered. "No," I snapped. "You should have never let her get this far." It didn't take long for the police to triangulate the message's origin. a remote cliffside property once owned by Vanessa's uncle. It had been abandoned for years but wasn't far from where we were. Ryan insisted on coming. We drove in 2 black SUVs, police in one, Ryan and I in the other, with his head of security driving and another guard in the back seat radioing coordinates. The closer we got, the heavier the air became. Trees thickened, the road narrowed, and the wind howled louder. Then we saw her. Vanessa stood near the cliff's edge, her hair wild, her face pale and twisted into something I couldn't recognize. Elia was in her arms, terrified, crying but alive. My breath caught. "Stop the car," I yelled. I jumped out before the wheels even halted. "Vanessa!" I screamed. She turned. Her eyes locked onto mine. And she started laughing. The sound was high-pitched, frenzied. "You came," she said. "Good. I brought your daughter back for you." She held Elia tighter. "Let's get rid of you and then the 4 of us can live happily ever after." Ryan stepped beside me. "Vanessa," he said, calm, careful. "Let me take her. Then we'll talk." She shook her head violently. "You lied to me. You were supposed to love me. We were supposed to be a family. You still care about me, don't you?" he said, taking a slow step forward. "Let me take Elia first. I'll come back to you. I promise." Vanessa looked uncertain. Then her grip on Elia tightened again. "No. You're lying. You always lie." She stepped backward, closer to the cliff's edge. My heart leapt into my throat. "Vanessa," Ryan said more firmly now, "I already have Arya." Vanessa froze. "She's safe," he added. "But if you hurt Elia, if you do anything to her, Arya will suffer the same fate." The color drained from her face. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "I would," he said coldly. Vanessa's arms went limp. She dropped to her knees, stunned. That was the moment Ryan's bodyguard moved, swift, silent. He darted forward, grabbed Elia and pulled her into his arms. Vanessa lunged. But Ryan stepped in front of her. She stumbled, one foot slipping on the uneven dirt, and her scream tore through the air as she tumbled off the edge. I heard the thud. Then silence. The police surrounded the area, shouting into radios. Ryan turned around, holding Elia now. He looked at me, eyes dazed, hands shaking. "She's okay," he whispered. "I've got her." I ran to them, pulled Elia into my arms. She sobbed into my chest, her tiny fists clinging to my shirt. "I was so scared, Mom," she cried. She said I couldn't go home. "You're safe now," I whispered. "I'm here." Behind us, officers pulled Ryan aside. His wrists were cuffed gently and he didn't resist. "She's dead," one officer said. "It was an accident, but we have to take statements." Ryan looked at me one last time as they led him away. "I told you I'd bring her back." And then he was gone. Ryan Mitchell was taken into custody that night, but he didn't resist. No lawyers. No shouting. No public statements. Just quiet compliance. I didn't see him again for several days. The police kept me updated. He'd been questioned at length, cooperative, composed, honest. He admitted everything, that Vanessa had been mentally unstable, that he'd anticipated her spiraling, and that he'd moved Arya to a secure location the day before. Just in case. She was her only weakness, he told them. And I knew Mira would never be safe if I didn't use it. It was calculated. Cruel maybe. But it saved Elia's life. And for that I owed him a moment. Just one. The day before we left the country I went to see him. The room was small and stark. Just a folding table, 2 chairs and a window that didn't open. Ryan sat there in a plain gray shirt, the kind they issue for temporary holding. His eyes were tired, his knuckles scraped. He looked older than I remembered, like grief had chipped away the boy I once knew. "You came," he said, voice quiet. "I wasn't sure you would." "I won't be staying long," I replied, sitting across from him. He nodded. There was a long silence. Then he said, "I've been waiting for a chance to tell you the truth. Not the half versions. Not the polite excuses. Just the truth." "I'm listening," I said. He looked down at his hands. "I never loved Vanessa," he began. "Not once. Everything between us. It was orchestrated. Her family, Clark's, but really the Sioux connection, had enough evidence to ruin the Mitchells. Financial irregularities. Past transactions. I don't even know how they got it, but it was real. They gave us a choice: form an alliance or watch everything collapse. So you agreed to marry her, I said flatly. I was going to propose to you, he said, eyes locking with mine. That summer. The ring was already chosen. My mother knew. I was just waiting for the right moment. I said nothing. But when Vanessa showed up pregnant, when she cried in my office and told me she had nowhere to go, my father panicked. The Clark name would be good press. They could clean up our image and keep the Sue family at bay. He swallowed hard. They used her Mira. And I let them. I was weak. I thought if I cooperated I could fix everything later. By sending me away, I said. I sent you abroad to protect you, he insisted. At the time I thought, if I kept you close they'd use you. They'd destroy you to get to me. And you thought I'd just wait, I said. His eyes dropped. I thought I'd bring you back once the merger was complete. Once the family was safe. But by the time I realized how wrong I was, you were gone. I let the silence settle between us. I tried to find you, he said. I kept posting those pictures online hoping you'd see them. Hoping you'd miss me. But all I did was push you further away. He looked at me again. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I want to thank you. For protecting Elia. For raising her into the incredible person she is. I stood slowly. You saved her, Ryan, I said. For that I'm grateful. But I don't need explanations. Or regrets. And I certainly don't need apologies. He nodded, tears welling in his eyes. I know. I came here to say goodbye. He blinked hard. You're leaving. Yes. Elia and I are moving. Somewhere far from this mess. Somewhere the Mitchell name has no reach. His hands clenched on the table. Can I ever see her again? I looked him in the eye. No. He flinched. Please respect that, I added. She doesn't need to know this version of you. Let her have her peace. He exhaled slowly. I understand. I turned to leave. But he called after me. Mira. I stopped. Will you at least tell her that I loved her? That I still do. I didn't turn around. I'll tell her what she needs to know, I said. Not what makes you feel better. Then I walked out. The airport was quieter than I expected. Elia clutched her stuffed rabbit, her hand holding mine tightly as we moved through security. Leona had flown ahead to prepare the house. Everything we owned was packed into 2 suitcases and a carry-on. It felt surreal, leaving the country where I was born, where I loved, where I lost. But it also felt right. Necessary. We reached the gate and sat down to wait. Mom, Elia said, what's our new house like? It has big windows, I replied, smiling. And a garden with yellow flowers. Will I have my own room? Of course. And a little desk. You can draw all day if you want. She beamed. Then her expression changed. 2 people were rushing toward us. Ryan's parents. They stopped just short of the gate, breathless and flushed. Mira, Mrs. Mitchell said, eyes wet. Please. Just a moment. I stood, shielding Elia slightly. We're not here to make trouble, she said quickly. We just wanted to see her. One last time. I hesitated. Elia looked up at me. I knelt beside her. Elia, I said gently, these are Grandpa and Grandma. From your dad's side. Her eyes widened. I have another grandma? You do. She turned toward them. They smiled and she stepped forward slowly. Mrs. Mitchell crouched and opened her arms. Can I give you a hug, sweetheart? Elia nodded. They embraced for a long moment. Mr. Mitchell joined them, his hands shaking slightly as he touched her hair. You're beautiful, he whispered. Just like your mother. When they finally let go, Elia walked back to me and took my hand. Mrs. Mitchell wiped her eyes. Thank you, she said. I gave her a tight nod. They didn't say another word. They turned and walked away. Elia looked up at me. Are we still leaving? Yes. Good, she said softly. I don't want to come back. I smiled through the lump in my throat. Neither do I. We stood as the boarding announcement began. Elia tugged at my sleeve. Mom. Yes, baby. Let's go, she whispered, resting her head against my side. I only need you. And just like that, everything behind us disappeared. We walked forward. Together. Into a new beginning. The end.